I say I have nothing in common with these characters except my humanity, and that is often enough if you want it to be, you know?
Cole, this is great. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
I'm happy to be chatting. I love your artwork. Good.
Thank you. My wall of pop culture madness, as I've come to affectionately refer to it.
Yeah, I recognize them all. I'm not sure what that is above Lion King, a little photo. It looks like you in front of, are
Oh,
you in the Criterion Closet?
that's right. It's the Criterion Closet. It came to Toronto
Oh,
during TIFF, and that's my little snapshot there.
cool.
Well, this is great. I'm very excited to be speaking today with Cole Webley, the director of OMAHA, which is just an incredible film, Cole. Honestly, I was speaking with John before, and I said referred to it. I think it's the loudest quiet movie I've seen in a very long time because there's so much quiet, but every scene feels like it says so much. But so I really
That's a
appreciate
high
this.
compliment. I love that. I've heard someone say it's like you getting punched in the face with the pillow with a pillow. And I kind of, I think maybe that's a similar analogy, huh?
That's very interesting. I would not have said that, but I understand that feeling now that you've put it out there. Um,
Yeah.
it's such an incredible story. Where did it come from?
It was the child of brainchild of Robert Machoan, who's the writer, of course. But Robert was living in Nebraska, and he kept, and it was after this event, but he'd heard tell of it, and he was just so smitten with this idea of like people and these parents and who they were and how could that happen, and trying to put himself in the shoes of primarily those parents as to like what must be going on for one to arrive at that helplessness. So he set out to kind of do this justice by fictionalizing an account of this family. So there he spent, this was the first screenplay he ever wrote, as he told me, and it sat on his counter, and he tried to get into the Sundance lab, and they said, no, you don't want to make your first movie with kids and animals and stuff, and uh and so he put it aside, and he made other movies. And then after a movie called The Killing of Two Lovers, I became acquainted with Robert's work, and we started working together on a screenplay that I had written that he was helping me with do a rewrite. And in that time, I had him, I asked if he had written anything else. And here he handed me this screenplay called Nebraska at the time. It was, written before Alexander Payne's movie came out. That dates the movie. And we I took it on and I read it as an audience member, not ever even thinking I would direct it. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is this is going to make a great movie. I don't know who's going to make this movie, but it's going to be a great one. I was so that's the tunnel vision directors get as we're writing on scripts. I was like, we're writing on my script and I'm reading a different script. But in hindsight, what it really gave me was this opportunity to experience the movie just purely as an audience member and as a reader. And I remember just going back to that feeling as like being a true audience member on the script and just being like, I just this movie. And then my producer read it and he was like, this is your first movie. I can see it. And I then went back to the text and read it with those new eyes, and I realized why that he was right and what it had in there. And we can talk about that, but like the obvious, the emotional potency, the familial themes, the perspective of a father, I just loved those. Those are the things that I loved when I read it, and it's the reason I wanted to make it ultimately.
You mentioned perspective there, and I think that's such an interesting word with this film because I feel like this film is told from multiple perspectives.
Hmm.
You have three characters here, and two of them are children but each like you've got Charlie, who's the youngest, who seems to be in his own little world and on an adventure. You've got Ella, who's sort of caught between this like maturity and adult at the age of 10. And then you've got Dad, if you will, who knows everything but is saying nothing. And I was wondering, for you as a director, what was it like to tell these stories? Because I feel like each one of them are bringing something different to the scene, and and bringing and but the story seems to shift through their eyes in different places.
Yeah, man, I think like Robert really envisioned this movie from the perspective almost solely of Ella, and I liked that, and then I cast it, and I couldn't kind of deny the magnetism of John Magaro and this Wyatt on screen, and so for me, I didn't want to be labored by the fact that it has to be from one perspective. I didn't know what value added value it would bring without seeing that, not seeing these great performances that brought this harmony, a harmony of three very distinct characters, and I really loved that about it. As you said, you have the innocence and nuance, innocence and naivete of this young boy, and then you have a girl in between that, one foot in adulthood and coming of age, and then you have dad who's struggling maybe the worst 3 days of his life, and trying to mask that for his kids. And I felt like when the movie's the best, it's where we see those lines and like those musical notes somehow coming into sync for brief moments of the movie, and then falling back out of order and being able to jump from each person and understand this trip and how significantly different it will be remembered by each person. And that drop off moment, how significantly uniting it was in the trauma of it. And then similarly, picture the movie being those kids kind of fading as their direction goes another way, and John somehow getting a future by the fact that dad comes back and he has that dialogue with that orderly. And that was really important for us to not just like have the film come to a crashing end, like you just disrupted and blown up this band, but to have this faint musical chord kind of continuing on, hopefully into a brighter day, but without, I mean, that was really tricky, like I didn't want it to be nihilistic in that we just delivered a gut punch and that's it. And that could have been this film, and I would have loved that movie too. But I'm 40. I'm more sentimental at my age and romantic, and I wanted the dad to have a future, and so giving him that final scene was something we came upon while shooting. We had started the movie and we did a little rewrite for the ending that we all really got excited about.
Yeah, I mean, this is, and I will say, without giving context, I did say this to John as well. I don't know the last time the words "I'm sorry, Dad" hit so deeply. Like they're just there's this moment where they're stated, and it's an unbelievably emotional experience just watching these characters on this journey. And I wanted to ask you about the idea of the hidden homeless, because I feel like Dad in this, we know from the opening scene that his world has just been stripped away, and yet he's and continues to be as the film goes on. But what sort of preparation or research or did you do in developing this character? Because I know, like this is a gentleman who, he's going to restaurants, he's doing this, he's paying for stuff, but nobody knows the struggle he has.
Yeah, and when we really dug into what the script was, that was one of the reasons I risked finance, effort, time, everything, because I just valued that aspect of the story of humanizing this marginalized person who um gave us context and just at least like a life behind him. So I loved that about the movie, and it was something that as I grew to fall in love and explore the script more and more, that became more and more apparent. As far as the research and what we worked on, I had very little time with John before we started shooting. we texted, but he was on another picture. So he came in like 2 days, 3 days before we started shooting. And thankfully, he had done the work on who this guy was. And I remember saying to him, look, it's in the script here that he's like mumbling. Is he praying? I don't know. Is he having like an emotional break? Is he having a psychotic, episode? I'm not really sure, but I know that it's probably something we want to do is have him do this little mumbling stuff. And John was like, I know exactly what he's doing. It was like I didn't even have to talk to him. I started. I was like, this is going to be a conversation because if he asks me why, I'm going to say I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know. One second. Hey boys. Hey boys. I'm on a Zoom. You got to be quieter. Um, and yeah, just having that where John was just like, I know exactly what it is. And then we laid into that on day two, and he just gave me all this stuff, and I was just like, how did he know how to do that? And that was his prep, he knew who that guy was, and I say I have nothing in common with these characters except my humanity, and that is often enough if you want it to be. And if we can kind of harmonize, as I said it again, the rawness and simplicity of we're just humans and in this experience trying to find some sort of security, peace, love, or whatever you want to call it. Um, there's great bridges to be built in between that, and it doesn't matter if you don't know the person, it doesn't matter if their socioeconomic is different, it doesn't matter if they're different race, different country. That's what art has that ability to do is bridge those divides, I believe.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But in that spirit too, I wondered about you working with these kids because the kids are phenomenal in this film. But I mean, this is very mature material, and I mean, for you, as you're working with them and preparing them to step into this, like, what sort of development for them? Because you don't want to overburden them with the frailties of human existence. When one of
Right.
your cast members is 6 years old, or however old Charlie
Yeah,
was.
six. Really
Six.
sick.
Okay. So what was that like, and what sort of conversations would take place?
So Molly, I couldn't shield her from anything. She wanted to know. She understood. She, as much as her 10-year-old mind could at the time, she was invested in being a working actor and understanding the text. And we had the safety of her mom and dad as partners in that. So I would not I would we would not there was nothing hiding that we would hide in the script. um, we talk a lot about her feeling the responsibility of needing to take care of Charlie. We would talk a lot about how the fact that she really had a great mom, and that like she felt secure, and that there was not like that at our worst moments her memory of her mom was something that like really anchored her. I sent her off to watch movies. I specifically had her watch A Quiet Girl, which was a movie that came out in Ireland a handful of years ago, where Molly really you could see an actress in a performance that was so complex without a lot of words, which was what Molly was going to be asked to do. And then for Wyatt, it was almost the exact opposite. It was almost just how do we keep Wyatt playing? And Wyatt being Wyatt, he was ready to do that. And he never missed their name. He never called Molly Ella or in on camera. Like he always called him the character's name. He understood when we were in the scene, and yet he didn't change who he was. It was really, really fascinating. Um, with him in particular to this climactic kind of hospital scene, it was like, how do I how do I talk to Wyatt about this? And the answer was, I didn't. He knew what the scene was. He knew that he was going to be, that this was going to happen. And what I instead focused on was creating an environment where he was just going to either be in it or he was gonna not be in it. And by golly, like it was 11 days into our shoot, 12 days of shoot days or whatever. And it just hit him like a ton of bricks. And he felt what Molly was feeling and what he gives in that movie in that scene. He did it one time. Molly did it multiple times, but that performance and loss and trauma of that moment, I mean, that's a 6-year old. And I just couldn't believe that he did that. And I think the way it happened was he's just such a raw kid and a loving kid, and he doesn't have filters. And that's what made him hard and great, you know? And it all manifests in that crazy performance that this little boy pretending that his father is leaving him at 6 and just being gutted and devastated. And I think that was important when we called cut, that he knew we were. I rushed up to him like he was a rock star. I changed the mood of the set immediately after. It was one of celebration and excitement and joy. And we were not lingering in those feelings. It was not, okay, everybody just stay calm. It was oh my gosh, I can't believe you're like a freaking rock star, man. You're like the best actor. You're like Brad Pitt. And he really loved the attention. um, and yeah, I mean, I think like it was so important to me having kids that this family and these kids walked away with a memorable summer and not just like some movie. And I get emotional thinking about like how this is a time capsule for that family forever of these beautiful ages of being 6 and 9 and 10 for Molly and Wyatt. And just looking back at those memories and seeing who they were at that age, it's just going to be awesome. Most of us have pictures, some video. These kids will have full on like performances with emotion and depth. And I'm just really happy for them to show that to their kids one day.
Well, this may sound odd to say, but you've tapped into something there. It's not just a time capsule. It's it's not just a moment of who they were. These are incredible performances by these two children. Like they give you everything. And if that's who they are, they more power to you for creating an environment where they can bring themselves to set like that because they just feel like these feel like real people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everything about this feels authentic. None of this feels manufactured. The interactions feel genuine. It's an utterly remarkable piece. It truly is.
Thank you so much. I, I was meeting with an actor the other day about my next movie, and she was saying some of these same things, and I said, I'm so happy that the material was there, but that also I just got to work with these incredible actors who are so willing to be vulnerable and give, and that it's a movie that says how much I love actors,
Mm.
and I do. They give so much on the screen, and they're the most vulnerable of all of it. Um, they have to take all the blame when the movie sucks, but they they are the most vulnerable on set. And bless them for doing that. Yeah, I
Well,
got really lucky. Great movie.
honestly, it is a fantastic film. I genuinely think it's just incredible.
Thank you, Steve.
Cole, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I think we said Omaha is in theaters on I think it's May the 8th. I will confirm that. Um,
Great.
but
Please
it's
go
just
see it.
absolutely
Little indie movies. We need people to champion them, and I appreciate you for doing that, Steve.
no problem. Anyway, and films like this are very special. So thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, buddy. We'll see you on the next one, okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye-bye.